Welcome to the Symbolic Lodge of Conversation, where consciousness and curiosity interweave into discussion. This is All Square Podcast. I'm your host, R.L. Franks, and this week, this is the story of my friend and brother, Shane Strzelczyk, a 7-year Mason who's also been embarking into more leadership roles, being a young man who is balancing work, family, and Masonry. This is the story of Shane. Shane, thank you for being a part of this today.
Thank you for inviting me. This is great.
You know, I've been watching you go through all these different degrees and branches in Masonry, and it's great to see another young man of the fraternity being so active. What made you want to be a part of Freemasonry?
Growing up, I watched like my dad, my grandfather. I come from a long line of Freemasons and stuff like that. And my grandfather always told me, you get out of the fraternity what you put into it. And so as I've gone along, the more I've found I've put into it, the more I do get out of it. The friendships, the brotherhood, it's really carries through the rest of your life and how you carry yourself and everything.
So you're a generational Mason. How far does the lineage go? 3?
As far as I know, my dad, my grandfather, and my great-grandfather, and I'm pretty sure that my great-great-grandfather was also a Mason.
That's really incredible. And that's not a lineage a lot of people can get to claim and enjoy in the fraternity. Growing up in your house, being around your grandfather, I often notice that a lot of grandsons like us are close to our grandfathers, and we kind of get inspired and intrigued in this fraternity. And there's a lot of people, there's like a generational difference between your grandfather and normally what would be your dad, who normally didn't join. There was a trend during the World War II generation and the flower power movement where these flower power men did not want to conform to what their dad was, while their dad was wanting to find fraternity. Your father did join the fraternity.
Yes.
But was it well talked about in your house?
It wasn't talked about, but everything, the signs were always kind of around.
Okay.
I remember, seeing my dad's Bible, sitting around on a table or something like that every once in a while, or I'd go over to my grandparents' house and he carried or had a pocket watch that was my great-grandfather's pocket watch that he kept in like a glass case, and in his Masonic ring was always next to that pocket watch. Seeing the emblem on his car, he always had the square and compasses on the back of his car, and my grandma had the Eastern Stars on her side of the car and everything. So it wasn't talked about, but it was always kind of there in the background.
Now, was your family Masons in Northwest Ohio where we're currently at now?
Yes. My dad and my grandfather were both Barton Smith guys. That's how I went to Barton Smith as well.
Excellent. We have 20 lodges in our district. Barton Smith, another great lodge. Used to be called the Silk Sock Lodge, I believe, because there was a lot of high-end falutin people who was part of Barton Smith, was a well-known Masonic figure in this area, and he did a lot of stuff on the national. I actually believe he was a past sovereign grand master of the Northern Masonic Scottish Rite jurisdiction. If memory serves me right, I'll have to fact check me on Reddit and come back to me on that. But he was also, I believe, a grand master as well. Correct me if I'm wrong. Do you know anything about Barton Smith?
I've looked back into it, but I don't want to sit here and have you quote anything on it, or
of course,
something like that.
Leave that to me. Leave that to me making the mistakes. But I believe he's a past sovereign grand commander, which is the head of the Scottish Rite Northern Masonic jurisdiction. So the signs were all there. Yeah. Signs are so important in our fraternity. Why do you think it is? What is Masonry? How is Masonry, I should say, different than Elks, Moose, Lion, Knights of Columbus, AHEPA?
Because you see the signs every once in a while, going into a new town, a lot of times we'll see the square and compasses up on the town sign. And I think as you see them a little bit more often, it's for someone not in the fraternity, it might be out of the corner of their eye or something, but they see it at every town they go to and maybe in a movie or something like that. And it just slowly piques interest. You see that square and compass so many times, you're going to go, I wonder what that is. Back in the day, they would have to go and maybe find a lodge and talk to it. Now you can get online and start reading up. You get on Google, square and compasses, or letter G, and it's going to pop up from there.
Right. But you know what? Technology is very important in today's society. But one thing that the internet or some of these other social media platforms or AI technology can't convey is the meaning that it means to the individual. Would you say that's a well said point?
Yeah,
Because it's different for all of us in the fraternity.
yeah,
How has that journey of 7 years
yeah.
been for you?
It's it keeps me connected in a more disconnected world. Like, everybody wants to say, "Oh, we're linked together by the internet," but that's just electricity running through wires. You're not talking to somebody like this. So having the fraternity to turn to keeps me connected with, other men, other like-minded men that, are either going to become mentors or friends or both, that can teach me, how to live life. And I think that's a very important thing to have, especially today, because of how I think disconnected everybody is from each other.
Yeah, we're very isolated with technology. Even though it's keeping us connected, it's also keeping us apart because I say this in other episodes of All Square. It's like, I know what you're doing on Facebook. I see the pictures. Y'all look, my friends look happy, but when's the last time I reached out to them?
Yep.
Did a wellness check. Hey, I'm just thinking about you. Just shoot a text message. I, as you will know, am a caller. I do not rely on text messaging because I'm worried how text messaging can misportray my message. Even from basic messages to when I'm getting in more deep conversations in a text message. I want to make sure that I'm very poignant on what I'm saying to that individual.
Yeah.
And what's great about a phone call is not only do I get to talk to you, we have that what could be a 2-hour text message, we can have that in 5 minutes.
Right.
But then I can also tell from your tonality, oh, everything okay? How's your wife? How's your kids? And Masonry is that brotherhood that brings us all together. Did you ever think you were going to experience that kind of brotherhood in a room full of strangers?
No, I mean, looking around, some of my absolute best friends, guys that I could call right now and I know they're going to answer the phone, are 40 years older than I am. And I know I can trust them. I can count on them. If I have something going on, I can go to them. Or if I don't have something going on, if I just want to, BS with somebody for a little bit, then I can call them and I can do it. And I think that is a very important thing for people in general to have, and the fraternity definitely gives that to any man that comes in.
Then why do you think that society, and not, I wouldn't say society as a whole, but there are certain people who are looking at our fraternity who are keyboard warriors and saying Masonry is, anti Christian, it's an evil organization. We sacrifice, we're baby worshiper, or, baby slaughterers, Satan worshipers. But why do you think the fraternity gets a bad rap?
It's very easy to be afraid of what you don't know or don't understand. And now that we are in a world where somebody can and voice their opinion without being face to face, you're just seeing it more. You're seeing that hate out there a lot more because they're not talking to you one-on-one or in a group or anything like that. They're sitting behind a keyboard, like you said. And so they're afraid of what they don't know and what the fraternity might be rather than coming out and saying, hey, what's this all about? Coming to a lodge and going, hey, what's happening here and stuff like that. It's easy for them to hate behind a keyboard.
I think I think sometimes these men, women, I think they live in their own personal hell. I think that in a world where so many things are negative on social media, TikTok, and everybody's looking like they're having a better life than you are, and you even put a post out and disagree with somebody, and like 50 comments come out negative, and they really like attack you. I think people are experiencing that kind of hell, and they don't have a organization and a brotherhood and that fellowship in their life like what the fraternity can offer.
Yeah.
Because, I don't believe every man should be a Mason. It needs to be the right men
Right.
coming in for the right reasons of the fraternity. Your lodge, how would you describe it?
We it's the demographics are a little older.
Mhm.
I know I'm probably one of the youngest members that we have right now, but it's a highly intelligent lodge. These guys have been there and done that with just about everything in Freemasonry. York Rite guys, Scottish Rite guys, guys that have been coming to Blue Lodge for 40, 50 years. And so it's a highly intelligent lodge where when we have to get the work done, we know we're going to do it. We're going to do it right. And it's going to be a good representation of what the work is. But at the same time, we also know how to have a lot of fun. We like joking around with each other. We like ribbing each other and everything like that. Certain guys are, you know, Michigan fans, go blue. And
Hey, now.
you got your other Ohio State fans. That's always the thing. You're gonna find somebody's chair replaced by a scarlet and gray or maize and blue and things like that. So we know how to have fun, but we also know how to get our work done.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Have you had any mentors who you got a whole lodge full of experience in that lodge that's been with you throughout your journey from when you first knocked on the door to where you are at now?
Yeah.
Has there been a mentor, somebody who may no longer be here, or somebody who's still there in the lodge that you contribute to a lot of your success towards?
There's any number of guys. I can name off any one of them. My first big mentor was Worshipful Brother Reed Knowles.
Mhm, yes.
He helped bring me in. He was the senior deacon when I was going through, and I was going to Owens Community College at the time, and he was a teacher there. So I'd go to his office, and that's how I studied my ritual and everything like that. So he really brought me in and made sure I was learning everything correctly. And you know, today, like I said, there's just any no, right worshipful Rick Scheider. Like he's all over the place. He's doing stuff everywhere, and he's pulled me along with them and kind of showed me the ropes and everything like that. But any one of those guys have taught me something somewhere along the way.
Excellent. That's great. With this fraternity, Shane, you wanted to talk about one thing that Masonry has really helped you with that not a lot of people on the outside would truly understand. What was that?
So it ended up helping me go from being just a passive Christian, um, somebody that, yeah, I believe and celebrate Easter and Christmas, but never attending church or anything like that, to being a truly active Christian. I went out and found a church to belong to, and I try to make sure I'm active in it, whether it's helping out being an usher or just taking part in the events that they're doing and things like that. Freemasonry is really what brought me to that state of mind of really truly believing in being a Christian again.
Now, why is that though?
There's teachings.
Okay.
And as the years have gone by and you listen to it over and over again, and finally closing my eyes and truly listening to it and trying to understand everything. And then also as I got into like the York Rite, which has more of like the Christian undertones and stuff like that, going through all of that really reopened my eyes to why I should believe.
Were you a um really active Christian growing up? Was faith really a part of your life when you were younger, into high school, college area, or
It was kind of a on and off thing. It wasn't very, you know, a big thing in our home or anything like that. I'd say by the time I was in junior high, high school, we weren't really active in going to any church or anything like that. So there was those years where I didn't have it around me and I didn't, you know, I would have said, maybe I'm agnostic or something like that because I just didn't know it very well. And so it took time to get to the spot that I'm in now.
I and it's great to hear that you're giving back in your community, and it brought you in here. Everybody thinks Masonry is anti-religion, which is not the case. When we open a lodge and when we close a lodge, we have a prayer.
Yeah.
It's a unified prayer because in this fraternity, we have men from all walks of life who believe in a lot of different religions. The only thing that we don't accept is atheism.
Yeah.
Because if you make an obligation that you are going to be a good man, a true man, and you're going to uphold the tenets of being that, an atheist who doesn't believe in anything, when they're making that vow, it's considered non binding
Right.
because they don't fear of any repercussions. And we have Native Americans,
Yeah.
Greek Orthodox, Lutherans, Muslim, Jewish, all in this fraternity. And I can only imagine what it was like back in the old days, like when, the cowboys and Native Americans were all being part of it, but there have been Native Americans who are part of it.
Yeah.
Today, you can absolutely see the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, and a Bhagavad Gita, or the spiritual scrolls for the Hindus right there as well. And we don't talk about our religions, but we appreciate that we all are under this brotherhood of man, under this fatherhood of God.
Right. And it really, you know, I believe in what I believe in, and the guy next to me believes in what he believes in. And, the way I look at it is anybody that is religious can take the lessons that we teach here in Freemasonry and apply it to their own faith. Whether, I'm Christian, that's what I believe in, but it's no different for somebody that might be Muslim or might be Hindu or anything. They can apply the teachings that we give to their faith in any way. And that's yeah, we're universal, but anybody can learn from it.
So we talked about fellowship. We talked about a little bit of religion. How are you interested in the education of the fraternity? Um, Do you said to me earlier that you like to listen to podcasts. What are you searching for when you're like watching these different podcasts? Are you in today's life as a modern Mason?
Myself, I'm a big
Yeah.
history buff. So I'm always digging around and reading different books or listening to different podcasts, whether it's Masonic or not. It typically ends up being history. Drives my wife nuts. I go on tangents about things, but um, a lot of like Masonic books. I'm reading one right now about like the Civil War and different things that happened out on the battlefield. Some of the stories all Masons know, and others are lesser known stories and things like that. It's just the brotherhood and how it could bring enemies together,
Mhm.
and things like that. And so, educationally, I'm very much into what can we learn from history and how can we apply it to today as well.
Yeah, history repeats
It
itself
does.
very often. So you said that your Civil War, did you say you were looking at
Yeah, right now.
right now? There have been a lot of experiences where prisoners of war were Masons, and how Masons of the North took care of the prisoners from the South and vice versa.
Yeah.
And I believe there was not a mode of recognition, but like Masons who were in the Civil War had like a red, um, oh, what would you say? String, not string, but like
Just like
something.
a stripe
Yeah,
or
like a red stripe on there to acknowledge that they were Masons and brothers were seeing each other on the battleground.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a
I know
very well documented case. You probably want to go into that.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, they'd see lapel pins or somebody might, give the certain signs or something like that, and, you'd find where guys would actually completely stop attacks just because they saw a brother Mason that needed help. Get him out of harm's way. You might have to leave him, but at least he's out of harm's way. There's stories about, they knew that there was a dead brother out on the battlefield, and a group of Union soldiers that were also brothers went out there and brought the body back to their lines to give them a proper Masonic burial and everything. And so there's just a lot of stories of that brotherhood, and these guys didn't know each other at all. They just knew that they were brothers and they cared about each other because of that. And it allowed people to have glimpses of humanity in some of the worst, fighting that the world has ever seen. And I think it's a very important thing, and it's an important thing to remember because it allows us to apply that even to today. If those guys could do it in the middle of fighting like that, then we can definitely do it while everything's civil.
Amen to that, brother. Amen to that. Um, yeah, you just think about, you try to look at the past and try to correlate that in today's times, and like, a lot of things don't have to escalate to where they need to be when we can still be able to have that art of discussion and find common ground between
Right.
brothers. And yeah, I've seen definitely brothers have nasty fallouts in the fraternity, and I've also seen brothers come back and regain that relationship
Yeah.
with those brothers. Yep. And I think Masonry is um, a it's a place where all these stories and all these symbols reflect such a deeper meaning on that humanity,
Yeah.
right? People always say, "Oh, it's world domination." Well, if it's for the greater good of humanity, I'm all for it personally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've seen guys who, again, don't know people from Adam. I've experienced this. I've been across the country and met guys, and they treat me just like a brother I know locally who I get to see every Monday at a lodge
Yeah.
meeting. Yeah.
And that's important. I mean, you just sitting out to eat, have a guy come walking up to you, just go, "Hey, brother, just wanted to say hi. Enjoy your meal." It's another guy that you might never see again in your life, but you have that instant connection, even for a few seconds, where like if I'm leaving the restaurant, he's got a flat tire, I'm going to help him. I
Yep.
know he's a brother, and I'm gonna go help him. And it's a very eye-opening experience when you just run into somebody and they go, "Yeah, I'm a traveling man as well."
Yep. Absolutely, man. I don't know if I said this on a previous episode, but like I was at this bar. It's like a beach bar up in southern Michigan, and I'm with my dad, who's a new Mason. These big motorcycle guys come in, and we're just sitting there having a Bloody Mary, and I noticed the square and compass, and I just said to this guy, I hailed him down, and I talked to him, and this guy comes to our table, and I say, "Oh, you're a brother?" And he asked me some questions. I asked him some questions. He knew we were both brothers, and him and his partner were so jovial to see other Masons from Ohio up here in Michigan. And my dad's just like new, not understanding. I'm like, that's Masonry,
Yeah.
right? I have friends from all walks of life. These aren't strangers to me. I can walk into a whole new lodge and make a whole new group of friends.
Yeah.
And they travel so deep. And I just participated in a Masonic funeral for a very well-known man and Mason in our area, Joseph Bublick, who was a past potentate of the shrine. Oh my goodness. The Masons that came out for this funeral and showed their respect. I mean, you talk about grown men just in tears, and then doing like the testimonial section of how Joe Public, had an impact on their lives. These guys were just popping up and saying, "Oh, how he was helping me put back together my garage. He was able to help us on our board," and just seeing that level of community.
Yeah.
And his wife's always going to be taken care of. He has a great son and great daughters who, our fraternity, and it's something that not a lodges should be more focusing on, is taking care of our widows and orphans,
Yeah.
right? Taking care of the wives and children of our fraternity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's always brothers, there's always, widows, orphans that need taken care of. And, that's one of the biggest parts of our fraternity is, it's not just you as the brother, it's your family as well. Um, every one of us out there are, working men. We have families out there. We have kids. We have grandkids. It's very important to every one of us. And as a brother to brother, that family's just as important. It's just extended family. That's all it is. And so when they need help, you help them. It's a very important thing.
Yeah, I agree. You just touched upon, something I really want to talk about. You're a modern man in the modern world. You've been married for how long?
We are going on 8 years soon.
8 years. You have 2 kids?
2. Yep.
That's what I thought. What's it like living in today's society where we're taught, to keep our passions in due bounds and circumscribe our desires? What's it like being a man in today's world, balancing that work life, family life, and masonry?
It can be tough. There's days where you're just tired. It's hard to get up and get moving. A Sunday afternoon, the yard needs mowed. Sometimes you got to just get up and do it. And it's the same thing. There's any day where it might be a lodge night and you're sitting there going, "Man, I'm beat. I'm tired right now." You've been running the kids around to sports and things like that. You had, wanted to make sure dinner was cooked before the wife got home and everything, so that way she's set up for the evening. And by the time it's time for lodge, you're going, "Man, I'm exhausted. I don't really know if I feel like going." But you get up and you do it. And the moment you get in there, it goes away. You're happy to be there and you're happy to have, other brothers around you. And, it might be just a simple lodge night. You're there for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then you're off again. And uh, but it is important to find that balance. You got to find times to enjoy your own solitary things, whether it is sitting down and reading a book or sitting on the back porch and just watching the birds fly by or something. You got to find that nice healthy balance, and it's easier some days than others.
Absolutely. Self-care is so important for today's men and women. Believe it or not, me and my producer went out and got massages one day. I never been to massage in my life, but it's my brother, and he said, "Hey, this is gonna feel good." And I tell you what, just taking those moments to just unwind, let the world be on the other side of that door, focusing on, maybe an internal project, or just even meditating and talking to yourself and self-analyzing like what happened that day, is so important in today's society. That's one thing I love. People think I'm crazy because I'm a South Toledo guy. I drive all the way out to Waterville to get to lodge, about 25 minutes. I actually pass a lodge in Maumee,
Yeah.
Ohio, to get to my lodge. I do that because, man, I take that drive after working 8 hours and I'm just unwinding on the road, and I'm getting that sense of excitement from meeting my brothers, talking about some stuff that we can do out in the community, learning something during the education presentation of the
Yeah.
meeting, and be able to just connect and then get pretty much recharged in today's society. You know, I've actually interviewed a wife of a Mason, my fellow craft and producer, Mike Lou, soon to be a master Mason. We're working on that. But, you know, how has the discussions been with your wife? Who does she have Masonic lineage in her family with her dads and brothers?
She has a grandfather that was a Mason, but I don't think she actually knew until I was out there one day and her grandmother saw my ring and goes, "Oh, my, you know, husband was a master mason too." And so it was never a part of my wife's life and or anything like that, but she knew like when I started getting old enough, we had been married, we had our first son and everything, but I had brought it up a couple times and she knew that like, my grandfather and dad were masons and everything like that. So, it was at first I don't think she really knew what to expect, but as we've gone along over these years and everything like that, um she's grown to, I think, enjoy it in some ways. When we go out and we do big group things like receptions and things like that, she has fun. She gets to see other Masonic wives around, and she knows and understands that this fraternity is not like your college fraternities where we're out partying and drinking or anything like that. We're out there to make the world better, but also make ourselves better.
Mm.
And over the years, she's really, I think, seen that because, I feel like I've been able to take lessons and make myself better. And I hope, you know, that she looks at it as I'm a better husband or a better father because of that. And so she's grown to accept it. And that's allowed her to be okay with me joining all these appendant bodies and doing a little bit more and everything like that and being busier, especially with, inspection season coming up and everything. I gave her fair warning, hey, I'm going to be gone a lot of nights, but she understands and it helps to have that support system too.
Being able to articulate masonry to your spouse and significant other, so important. It's something I wish more lodges would focus on when a new brother's coming in. Taking that time during the investigation portion, going to the house, bringing a brother who can break it down and talk to the wife about this, asking her questions, because there's so many times I know guys who go through the degree and then they come home that night and the wife asks, "Well, how was it?" "I can't talk about it." Not the best way to start off trying to build a relationship with your wife in this new fraternity that's kind of scary in the public's eye, or the conspiracy theory sites, and then leaving her go on that path down a rabbit hole on conspiracies and articles against masonry. We need to figure out a way where we can have those discussions, be able to talk about it, because I used to hate it when people would say there are no secrets in masonry. No, there is. There is. It's what keeps us together, though, in our brotherhood.
Yeah.
It's a way I know you're a Mason compared to a clandestine Mason who just wanted to create a get-rich scheme and then pawn everybody out of their money and stuff. And there are clandestine lodges, and that's really a big thing in certain parts of the area. Not really in Northwest Ohio. There is a clandestine lodge in Ohio. But yeah, to be able to know those modes of recognition. Once I know you're a Mason, there's that bonding there that you and I walk through the same steps. Were you a traditional or a one-day Mason?
Traditional.
Okay, same. So we were walking through those same steps into the fraternity. We both understand what we went through, and we've gained an appreciation of that. Not taking anything away from a one-day Mason, especially in the modern times today. Sometimes the one-day class is the approach some Masons need. We've had great men who went through a one-day class. Yeah, society as a whole of this fraternity hasn't made you a better man.
I believe so. I really do. Because there are a lot of lessons that you can apply to your life. You know, as you hear them more often and understand them a little bit better each day, you know, I can take another chip out of that rough ashlar. And I feel like I have. And I got a long way to go, but I definitely do feel like a better man than when I first knocked on that door. And, it's something I can carry through the rest of my life. And down the road, with my two young boys, I really am hoping that someday they'll come up to me and go, Dad, I'm ready. I'm ready to knock on the door. And then I get to help them do the same thing.
It's so important to be able to have your sons be aware of the fraternity, not give anything away about that experience, and making them make their own decision if they want to join or not.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of times I see guys who get pushed in because of their dad, and they don't get the right experience. If I had kids, I wouldn't care if they joined Rubicon or Barton Smith. I would just want them to be active in the fraternity. And these young men should be aware of what the fraternity is and let them come to their own free will and accord. Because if you it's like, it's like a dad living vicariously through their son in sports,
Yeah.
right? Pushing them and pushing them. And then when they get out of high school, they have no interest in that sport anymore. It happens in Masonry too. So yeah, definitely something you said you have two boys?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely something to keep in mind. And there's youth organizations too you can always try out, like the D Malay.
Yeah.
It's kind of a good starter into the Masonic fraternity, and it's something you can be a part of with them. How old's your boys?
10 and 8.
Okay. Your one son is actually close enough to be a squire. I don't know if you know anything about the squires.
I've heard of them a little bit, but I don't know a ton about them.
So there's a few 10-year-old boys. So the squires is kind of like the Cub Scouts of D Malay. It's called the Squire program. And in Perrysburg, there's actually a group that has a few young 10-year-olds who are a part of that. There's like 6 kids, I think, right now.
Okay.
And they're really rebuilding a chapter. D Malay really focuses on Jacques D Malay.
Yeah.
If you know you're a history guy, Jacques D Malay was a Templar.
Yep.
And all the good works he did in the fraternity. And instead of the Boy Scout uniform, the men wear soups, and they got like this like night cape or something like that. I've been a dad advisor for 6 years, I want to say, but it's a great institution. I know a lot of great young men who, man, I know a guy who was a part of one of the DMLA chapters in the area, worked his way up to international, traveling around the world, goes on become a dentist, takes on his father's practice, and that's like a 4-generation Masonic lineage of that out in Van Wert, Ohio. He's a
Okay.
great individual. Hopefully I'll get him on here soon. But yeah, that's just something to keep in mind.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something it's important, and it's everything that I'm gonna lay out there. Like I said before, everything was always kind of around me, but it took time for me to really uh come to my own conclusion that I wanted to join. And I had poked around, asked, dad or grandpa, hey, what is this? What's going on? And they'd kind of, well, it's just fraternity and all this kind of stuff. And I read online a little bit, but it took a few years. It wasn't until I was into my 20s that I was like, you know what? No, I do want to join. And I finally, I went to my dad, went to my grandpa, and then I don't know if you remember Jimmy Simpson.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my
He
goodness.
was a teacher of mine at Owens, and he was another guy that I went to. He actually was one of the guys that signed my petition for me.
Wasn't he Sylvania? Wasn't he Sylvania
Sylvania
Pyramid?
Pyramid.
Yeah.
But I saw one day he had something, and I was like, oh yeah, my grandfather's a Mason, and so we got to talking about it, and that's when I finally was ready to join. I met somebody else outside of the family a little bit, and then went back to my, dad and grandpa, said, hey, I really want to do this. And that was when they finally said, okay, like I think you're ready now. I think it seems more genuine than just a curiosity. It was a genuine thing that I wanted to join. And it did. It took until I was in my 20s to do that.
Now you join. And then you took a break.
Yes. So I had joined, and at the time I was still going to school. My second son was born, newly married, working anywhere between 50 and 60 hours a week, and something had just had to give. And one thing that could give was Freemasonry. So I kind of walked away from it for a while, really actually almost lost real contact with it. Um, and it took a few years. It really took up until, well, I graduated in 17, close to 18. Um, and then COVID hit, and it was kind of those alone times, with COVID and everything, that I really missed it. I really
What were you missing?
just the camaraderie, the
Mhm.
brotherhood of it,
Absolutely.
having other people around that I enjoyed really spending time with. Everything else was gone at the time. There was no going out to see friends or anything like that. It was go to work. I might see one or two people there, and then I'm stuck at home. And I just really started to miss that extra bit of friendship, that extra bit of fellowship. And so once everything started opening back up, I just sent a text. Hey, I'd really like to start coming back to Lodge. Is that going to be okay? Well, what do I need to do? And they said, show up. Just come back. That's all you have to do. And that day I walked in, sat down, and it was like I never left. It was right back to it, right where we picked up. How's the wife and kids? How's everything going? You know, it was no skipping a beat.
It's so tough to put that into words, right? How this fraternity affects us.
Yeah.
But it's our own little world inside the real world that we can come together, do good works, be there for each other, and become better men. Now, you are going to be senior warden or worshipful?
Yes, I'll be moving up to senior warden
You'll
this
be
year.
moving up to worship. Okay, senior warden. And you're going to be focusing on getting ready to run the lodge.
Yeah.
How does that feel being in, the co-pilot chair of the lodge right now? You're not the captain, but you're definitely you're about to be sooner than
I
you think.
phew, I'm just trying to soak everything in, every bit of information I can, because I know, the guys in the lodge want to see me have a successful year, and I want to have a successful year. I want to be able to walk away, you know, when I leave the East, walk away and say I did a good job. These guys were happy with what I did, and I'm happy with what I did. So I'm trying to soak in every little bit of information anybody's given me.
Well,
Telling me, get prepared now, make your calendar now. Start sending letters out now if you need to. So I'm trying to do everything I can to just be as prepared as I possibly can.
one way to do that, grab a notebook, write 3 things you truly want to accomplish your year. Could be internally, could be out in the community. And then call a officers meeting, talk to the worshipful, get it approved. And I would say kind of next summer, because you won't be worshipful yet, bring the officers and say, guys, this is what I have. These are the tentative dates. We can move stuff around, but this is what I want to accomplish.
Yeah.
I want your input. I want to keep on what I have as my agenda, but I want your input of how to accomplish this. I guarantee you, you will be so far ahead than most men who are about to go into the master spot. I did that at Rubicon, and I just always just wrote down little things I want to do, and don't overburden yourself with a bunch of things. I took a quadrant and I'm going to focus on ritual, education, fellowship, and charity. Ritual to get the tone, to get these new men excited that you're going to make Masons, because you will in the future be making Masons.
Yeah.
Education to inspire. You said you're a well-educated lodge, to keep those creative juices flowing and learning more about the deep, rich history of a fraternity. Fellowship, that's that cement that keeps it all together, because the camaraderie is what you're looking for. A lot of men out here in cyberspace who are listening to this are looking for that in their lives.
Yeah.
And then charity, and don't think charity is all about like writing a check to, one of the local charity organizations. Charity, being here for one another, working together to do some kind of good work that's going to impact the community.
Yeah.
Focus on those 4 things. Get your notebook, get an officers meeting, have a couple.
Yeah.
You will be so far ahead. And this is just experience as a junior past master. I guarantee it. Believe it or not, this time has flown, and I'm going to ask you the last question. What's one thing you want to tell the people watching the fraternity, watching this episode about the fraternity?
When you decide to take that step through the door, take time to listen. And as you go through it and as you experience more of it, eventually you're sitting on the sidelines watching it as you're, maybe sitting in an officer's chair for the first time watching it. Take time to just close your eyes and actually listen to what's going on, because it can teach you so many different things. And just because it teaches you something this way this time, 5 years down the road, you might hear those same words and it can teach you something completely different. But every time it will make you a better man.
That's my brother, Shane Strzelczyk. I'm R.L. Franks. We're going to have him back on here again during his year as master and after his year as master to get a follow-up. And you, my friends, are all square.